All right. Before we talk about cowboys, gold, railroads, and all the rest, I want you to hear a sentence that basically built the most popular American story about the West. Historian Frederick Jackson Turner wrote in 1893, quote, "The existence of an area of free land, its continuous recession, and the advance of American settlement westward," unquote, shaped American development.
Free land, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Free land.
Free.
2 words doing a lot of work there.
Exactly. And so, because if the land is free, then the story becomes simple. Brave settlers move into empty space, struggle heroically, and build democracy with their bare hands.
It sounds good, this Turner story, where we have frontier equals freedom, frontier equals progress, and it gets repeated everywhere. So we have textbooks, paintings, dime novels, and eventually probably the biggest culprit in Western... Did you just turn... What was it? Why would you do that?
You just sound really loud in my ears. I'm just trying to figure out which... Oh, there's my volume. All right. Happy New Year.
Wow.
Keep going.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't even...
you were talking about movies.
Yeah, thank you.
go ahead.
Well, it's
Yeah,
hard
yeah,
to
yeah.
maintain a train of thought when you get muted. Okay, so probably the biggest culprit is Western movies, where we repeat this national origin story that comes in the form of a cowboy hat.
I should have been a cowboy.
Oh, I was
That's what
gonna
I kept
was
singing
gonna
in
go for-
class.
That was weak.
Yeah? I thought you were going to do a Dixie Chicks cowboy. Cowboy, take me away.
Okay. I was going for Clint Eastwood.
I love
but anyway,
Cowboy Take Me Away.
I'm a man
the
of a certain
Chicks.
age.
The Chicks, yes.
The Chicks. So now that was Turner, right? Let's drop in a second voice here. Another historian, Patricia Limerick, one of the leaders of what we're going to call the New Western history. She argues we've been telling the story of the West like it's some kind of fairy tale with a happy ending, and she pushes us toward a different lens, one where the West is about conquest, conflict, environment, labor, and power that doesn't politely end when the frontier closes. In one interview, she puts it bluntly, history should be, quote, fully engaged in the conflicts of the present, unquote.
You guys ready to have some fun today?
Yeah.
Make some noise if you're ready to have fun today.
Yeah.
Okay, not much noise.
That was some noise.
Yeah, it was noise.
It was
Well-
an odd noise, but
So the story we're going to tell today is going to be very fun because 2 Wests, 1 podcast, 2 stories of the West at the same time. Which West is the correct West? Is it Frederick Jackson Turner's West, or is it Patricia Nelson Limerick's West?
Or is it a trick question?
Yeah,
Oh.
Is
Could
it
be
a
a
trick
trick. It
question?
could be both.
or does the West exist at all?
Because really, both of these stories exist. They're powerful stories. They're compelling stories. The West as myth and the West as a real place where millions of people lived, worked, fought, negotiated, migrated, and ultimately survived.
And this matters because the story you choose, Turner's quote-unquote frontier of opportunity or Limerick's quote-unquote conquest and consequences, shapes how Americans think about land, race, citizenship, government power, and who gets counted as the main character.
And also, if you ever wondered why the West feels like it's got its own genre of an American identity, this is why. This story and this historiography, looking at the story of the past and how different historians have told that past. This is why.
So buckle up. We've got some wagon trails to ride. We're gonna hop on some railroads. We're going to follow the buffalo herds. We're gonna negotiate this newfangled barbed wire. There's going to be boom towns. There's also going to be courtrooms. And we're ending at Wounded Knee and the Dawes Act. And then when the federal government tries to finish the job of conquering the West, not just with bullets, but ultimately with paperwork.
Happy New Year.
Hi, Happy New
Happy
Year
New Year
to
to you.
We started this podcast in 2025. It is now 2026.
Let's go.
We're just about a year, almost to our year anniversary.
What
Not
are we going to
quite.
do for the year anniversary?
Oh my gosh, I was
Oh,
just
yeah,
thinking
like
when
a-
you said that, I
a
was
party
like,
or
oh my
something.
gosh.
Wasn't it? Yeah, it was end of January, wasn't it?
Yeah, we can go
We
back.
have to go back to the date because I really do think, you guys,
Yeah.
Should we go out
Guys.
for dinner or something?
We should.
Oh, yeah. We could.
Celebrate good times.
Come on! Garrison's like, "Ugh, more time with you guys.
celebration.
We had a good winter break. We
Yeah.
played golf together
We
one
did.
day.
We did. That was fun.
You
That
might have
was
seen us
awesome.
on our Instagram.
Yeah. That was good.
What else did you guys do?
Gosh, a whole lot of waking up
Yeah,
Like,
I started to sleep in a
after
little.
7 a.m.
I did too. The last day of break, I slept till 10:30. I've
I don't
not
even
done
know how
that
that's possible.
since I was an infant.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not being dramatic.
No, but listen, you're a younger person. You will get to a certain age, and you're like, that will be an impossibility. I think.
No, I don't. It was a fluke.
Yeah. I did a lot of little odd jobs around the house.
Mm-hmm.
Kind
I
of
didn't do that.
messed around. I cleaned out, organized the garage. Felt real good about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
TDM, total dad move.
That was a total dad move.
Well,
Clean out the
If it
garage.
is,
I'm like,
then
hey,
yeah, I'm proud of it.
all right,
I
let's
feel
go.
good about it.
Yeah.
What'd you do, Mr. Hill?
Gosh, whole lot of nothing. Went to KC,
Mm-hmm.
saw some family, and watched some movies, and had lots of people over. Had fun with my neighbors. Had fun with you guys, golfing a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's about it, man. Just
Wow.
chill.
And
Cool.
Keltner, you put a puzzle together, right?
I did. I'm still not finished with it, but yes, I'm attempting my puzzle still, my winter puzzle. I spent a lot of time on the couch, mostly because I had a sinus infection pretty much the entire break.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all right. I'm back.
What is the puzzle of it? You mentioned winter.
It is a scene from a German beer garden. Yeah.
Speaking of 1 year celebration, maybe we should go find
To Germany?
Germany.
Oh, that's it. We're going to Germany.
Going to Germany.
Okay, you guys, so let's get into this episode.
Let's go.
I was watching Jeopardy yesterday, an old episode, and this was the final Jeopardy question.
Okay.
It's the topic is phrase origins. An 1845 article called Annexation, quote, annexation, was the first appearance of this two-word phrase implying inevitability.
Pick me.
Mr. Hill?
What is manifest destiny?
Ding, 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 ding.
Boom. Get all the money.
You know what? Only one person got it right.
Oh, really?
Everybody, yeah.
Chumps.
And, these people, they bet it all.
Oh.
And they lost.
Go big
everything.
or go home.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they
yeah,
should
I
have
thought that
listened
was,
to APUSH for All.
Yeah, I thought that was timely because that's kind of where we're going to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
This belief that the United States had a God-given mission to expand across the continent. First coined in
Absolutely.
1845.
Absolutely. And before the Civil War, that expansion isn't just an idea, it's really a movement. You got trails, you got wagons, migration, streams, Oregon Trail, California Trail, Santa Fe Trail. You guys, I've talked to you guys about
Yeah.
Independence being the queen city of the trails.
You have.
You have.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, right. So and Santa. So
Okay,
I'll,
then.
Yeah,
so
keep it
I'm gonna,
moving.
so I'm gonna say it again. Santa Calagon days, Santa Fe, California, Oregon trails, all emanate from the great city of Independence, Missouri. So you got all those trails. You got Mormon migration. You got people chasing land, trade, religious freedom, or just a reset button.
Yeah, looking for the West as the new land of opportunity, right? And this is where we have to kind of slow down and connect our previous discussion of manifest destiny with Turner's vision, because Turner makes it sound like the West is this open blank canvas just ready
It
to
wasn't.
be yeah, thank you. That's true. It was not a blank canvas, not even close. Right? We know that indigenous people had lived in the region for generations. There's hundreds of distinct nations with their distinct economies and cultures. There's farming communities like the Pueblos, and there's diverse plains people who lived lives that were deeply tied to the migration of the buffalo. Buffalo, not just food, it was housing, clothes, tools, fuel. It's an entire ecosystem that will be disrupted by this idea of manifest destiny.
Did you guys know there's a movie with Nicolas Cage from a couple years ago called The Buffalo Hunter? And it's kind of all about this time period of the destruction of the buffalo
I did not.
No.
on the plains.
Or
Yeah.
maybe it was on my kind of radar. Guess that. Okay, connections everywhere here. So one of the books that I got as a gift over the holidays was a novel called The Buffalo Hunter, and it is gripping. It's a novel.
Is it
It's-
someone who hunts buffalo hunters?
Yes, and
Oh.
it's like this period of time.
Oh my gosh.
It's Native American story mixed with vampires.
I was gonna say, is it like
Really?
Abraham Lincoln?
Yes.
Vampire Slayer.
And I cannot put it down.
It sounds pretty
is
good. I kinda wanna read
So
this
I was
now.
just going to ask before you said the word vampire, oh, is it fiction or nonfiction? And now I know.
Well, we
It's
still don't know.
obviously
because
nonfiction.
There are vampires.
Right. It's
you know.
obviously nonfiction.
So, that all notwithstanding, we haven't even mentioned the Hispanic influence. The Southwest had long histories of Spanish colonization, missions, ranching, and later Mexican governance in places like California, New Mexico. Land grants, ranchos, and communities existed long before the U.S. arrived, claiming it was settling anything.
So it's very obvious. And I think I was reading a statistic the other day that the population of the Spanish Empire and what would become the continental United States was like 300,000 or something.
Do you know that 73% of statistics are made up on the spot?
Okay, you've said that before. I'm telling you.
I
that
just like saying it. It's a funny thing. You get it? It's a joke.
Yes.
Because I'm making it up right in this moment.
Right.
No, I get it, but
Irony.
it's like you've told that joke before.
I don't know. Maybe,
And I think you told it 73 times. Or
I'm
something.
I'm trying to make a really important
Oh,
point
sorry.
here.
Okay.
Sorry, I
Which is
forgot.
that
Go.
Very
Let's go.
serious.
Even before, even before the Civil War, really, and post-Civil War, you have a West that is very much populated, very much filled with complex characters, and this land is already contested by many groups.
Right. That's very important to say. History existed before the Americans arrived, right? So this is exactly why the two West approach that we're taking matters so much, because if you start your story at the pioneers arrive, you've already decided who counts.
I love that noise. I love those tones.
calm.
I missed it.
It's really soothing. So now we jump to 1862, middle of the Civil War, and Congress has just passed something that becomes a huge magnet for westward expansion, the Homestead Act.
You know what also happened in 1862? And I'm not making
The
this
Battle of Antietam.
That and
A1
steak sauce was
A1 steak
was
sauce.
created.
That's what
I'm not right.
Look it up.
I don't doubt it. I mean,
A1
I just question
steak
its
sauce.
relevance.
It's just something that I always remember.
I think it's tasty.
Right.
I would never ruin
They
a good
said
steak with
in the
A1 steak
middle
sauce.
of the
No.
Civil War, you
No.
know what we need?
A1 is for bad steak.
On the bottle, established 1862.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe if you're trying to remember when the Homestead Act took place,
1862, A1
you
sauce.
just think of A1.
And so the promise is basically of the
Not of
Homestead
A1.
Act.
Yeah, not the
No,
promise of A1.
Of the Homestead Act
Right.
is that you live on the land, you improve it, and then you can claim it as your own after 5 years.
Yeah, and the law's language is really explicit. You go out there, you work it a little bit, you get 160 acres, you immediately become a prominent landowner, and you're just, living the dream.
That's a lot of acreage.
It's a lot of acreage.
It's pretty much scot-free. So that there is the Turner-friendly version. All right, the government opens land, ordinary families become independent farmers, democracy spreads across the grasslands.
But there's sort of a hidden line in that story that the Homestead Act only works if the land is available for homesteading. And we had a lively conversation about homesteading in my class yesterday. What does that mean to homestead? It means really to be self-sufficient in everything that you do. So basically not having to buy anything from anywhere else. And so homesteading means, though, that this land is going to be taken from, as we mentioned, all the groups who are already living in the West pre-Civil War. So this could be taken by treaty pressure, coercion, violence, or forced removal from indigenous nations.
So even though this is a story of opportunity, it's really implying that conquest is necessary.
Right, and I think the West is a place where there have been all of these myths that we probably need to bust, right? Because the West doesn't just become a place, it becomes this idea in American history. And that's why, any man past the age of 50 is obsessed
Why-
with Westerns.
Were you looking at me when you said
No,
that?
I
Okay.
actually, I was looking straight forward. I made a point not to look at you.
That's okay. I am a man of a certain age.
Yeah.
But
And that's all we
men
need to say.
love westerns.
You know what?
I grew up on
It
them.
is true.
Yeah.
I mean, like
It's because you have this romantic version of the West.
and I
Exactly right.
completely agree with that. I remember as a kid saying, like, why would anyone not want to be a cowboy?
Yeah.
I mean, just because you get to go wherever you want.
Should
do
have
whatever
been
you
a
want.
cowboy.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I used to
Yeah.
sing as a young man.
In class, I don't know if you guys, I show a clip, and it mentions that there are over 4,000 movies Hollywood made with the main theme being cowboys.
And they're still making them.
Oh, yeah.
The Netflix just came out with another Western series I saw, the Abandons.
Yeah, but although that one's interesting because women are at the heart of the story.
It is.
and it's
So-
about time.
Yeah.
You're telling me, sister.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Or we showed, I think you guys showed too, the clip or the trailer from 1883.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so even though these stories are becoming more inclusive, because they should be, as we've described, that this is a very complex place, diverse place, the West is, it's still a topic that so many people are interested in. It just, every year there are Western shows and movies still coming out.
And I get the draw. You get these, dramatic landscapes. Think of painters of the Rocky Mountain School. Big skies, glowing peaks, valleys that look untouched and sacred.
Yeah, you've got some really famous ones like Albert Bierstadt, Thomas Moran, huge canvases where nature almost feels like an inevitable destiny. And
Manifest?
even manifest, you could say. The West is almost this giant cathedral of nature, and everyone kind of wants to go and discover it for themselves.
And then you have the justice-seeking cowboy who's really going to take over popular culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that trailer, the 1883, the scenes where everything's moving really fast, but you have Sam Elliott talking to Tim McGraw,
Yeah.
and all you hear, if you don't have subtitles on, all you hear is this thick accent going, rice and butter, man. That's right.
And Tim McGraw's like, I care about that boy right there. I care about you, and I care about our daughter. I
And
don't
our
care
daughter.
about anyone else.
And that's all.
And that's
And that's all.
Turner's idea.
Simplistic, individualistic, all of those things.
There it
so,
is. Tim
I
McGraw.
am the law.
I am the law. Oh, and how many times has that been uttered in
great.
popular
Around
culture?
these parts,
I say it all the
I am
time
the
in
law.
class.
Right,
I am the
exactly.
law. And my students like, yeah, okay, all right, man.
Yeah, and they back off.
They understand.
And what's wild is the cowboy is there were cowboys, but they're both real and heavily edited. Let's say cattle work is brutal labor. They are wage earners, okay. But in the myth, the cowboy becomes this lone, moral, rugged individualist, like the West produced a special kind of person.
Yeah, and you've got, of course, famous works of literature like the stuff that Mark Twain put out that helps popularize Western travel and this kind of boomtown culture with his novel Roughing It. You've got figures like Buffalo Bill turns violence and conquest into really just a drama and sensationalized entertainment. And even Teddy Roosevelt, who's really his entire identity is based on going west, roughing it, as Mark Twain's told him to. And that sort of shapes his identity as an American. He's not really an American until he goes west and rides the plains and becomes a true manly man. And he loves the frontier image so much that he ends up writing the winning, and I think that's a key word, the winning of the West, which is his narrative on expansion and national triumph, and will be the basis of his own ideas later on about future American adventures abroad.
It really, when you think of Teddy Roosevelt, it really makes you consider why there seems to be such a necessity to assert one's masculinity.
Long pause.
Yeah. Well, I think for him, he was sickly child. I'm sure we can
We'll get into
tackle-
this, but
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
that's just it was a rhetorical question.
okay. Sure.
And
Didn't feel that.
it also came
like a
to mind, and we mentioned this in class yesterday. We have 3 NFL teams that are dedicated to the American West. We have the 49ers, the Cowboys, and the Bills.
Yeah.
True.
There goes your popular culture right there. Wow. So, okay, let's get back to Turner. So when he shows up with his famous thesis in 1893, he says that the frontier
Probably the Broncos too.
Yeah.
How about that?
That's 4.
What?
Of what, 32?
Yeah.
That's...
I'm no mathematicien, but I think
like
that's
a horse.
1/8.
I sound like a bronco. Let me do it again. Don't laugh.
That is a Bronco.
Oh no, we're going off the rails again. Okay, so Frederick Jackson Turner in 1893, he shows up on his horse and he says, the frontier has shaped American democracy. And he's not inventing this myth completely out of nowhere, right? There's some truth to this. He's giving this academic seal of approval to a story that Americans, they want to hear and one that they have heard and believe in.
So, right. The frontier becomes a character in and of itself in the national story. It tests you, it makes you stronger, and it makes you American.
Okay, so let's deconstruct this a bit. Let's pull the camera back, because if you look at the West on the ground, it is not just a playground for rugged individuals. It's this complex web of labor systems, migrations, huge influence of corporations, but probably the one that people don't think of at all and is most influential is government subsidies, because ultimately it's government subsidies that's going to underwrite all of this cultural conflict.
So let's start with the idea that this is a web, a place of a web. And as we've mentioned, the West is incredibly diverse.
Right. You've got Mexicans and Mexican Americans in the Southwest. You have indigenous nations everywhere. African Americans, also known as exodusters, were moving west looking for land and to escape the Jim Crow South, essentially. And immigrants from Europe arriving in huge numbers in the late 1800s.
And there's also a very large Asian immigration to the far, far West, the Chinese immigrants in particular, and they become central to the story of the Western labor system.
And Chinese communities are going to grow up in Western cities like San Francisco. People are going to work in all kinds of jobs. There'll be laborers, there'll be servants, factory hands. Many actually end up in some of those jobs because they're pushed out of lucrative opportunities of mining. That some initial Chinese immigrants make a lot of money off of things like gold mining, and they're pushed out. So they start running laundries because startup costs were low and the work was available for them after they'd been pushed out of other more desirable types of work. So in California by the 1890s, Chinese workers made up over 2/3 of laundry workers.
Wow, that's huge. And then, of course, comes the backlash. You got political parties and labor movements in California that will weaponize anti-Chinese sentiment, and the violence will spread.
And so in 1882, Congress will pass the Chinese Exclusion Act. And I know we'll get back to this when we talk about changing immigration in the 20th century, when you can use this as a touchstone. But this is really the first time that the federal government has attempted to limit or end unrestricted immigration for a particular group. And the text of the law literally frames Chinese laborers as a threat to good order, and that justifies their exclusion from future immigration.
And it's one of the clearest and earliest examples of how race and citizenship law collide. Who's welcome, who's seen as an American, and who is going to be pushed out by federal policy.
Okay, so let's do the economy, because this is where the Limerick-style story really starts to pop.
So mining first, right? Gold strikes and rushes create boomtowns. We know at Sutter's Mill in California in 1848, 1849. But the longer-term story is really corporate mines, and as a result, wage labor and danger.
And mining is probably one of the most hazardous workplaces in the country. We're blowing stuff up,
Yeah.
in dark tunnels. That doesn't sound
Blowing
good.
stuff up.
Right? So in some periods, one worker in every 30 ends up disabled, and 1 in every 80 is killed.
Wow. So that's not a lone prospector with dishpan in hand, panning in a stream. That's industrial labor.
Yeah, and the type of mining that's going to happen, gold, silver, copper. And yeah, initially in 1848, 1849, it is these kind of lone miners with their dishpans, and then it becomes extremely corporate and industrial. And then the second type of industry in the West is going to be cattle, the cowboy myth. This says this American invention, but the reality is that the cattle industry builds on Mexican ranching techniques through branding of cattle, roundups, roping, the gear, and even the horses.
And so after the Civil War, there are about 5 million cattle on Texas ranges alone. And what cowboys are needed for is to drive these herds north to the railheads like Abilene.
In Sedalia, Missouri.
Right? Kansas City.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
Kansas City only exists in order to transport cattle.
Absolutely.
And
So-
why does cattle need to be transported?
because they can't levitate on their own?
They can't.
What do you mean?
No, this is.
Is this a joke? It
No,
sounds like
it's
it
just
sounds like the
I
startup
don't know
of
if I don't know if some of our listeners really understand why cattle. I don't know if the dots always connect. It's so that humans can eat the cattle.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yes, I wasn't trying to be. I mean, I know I'm usually a jokester, but
Yeah, it
No.
did sound like the beginning of a joke.
It
You have
did.
to-
I was
Why
waiting-
does the cattle need to
You have
trans?
to-
I thought
why
there
did
was
the
gonna be a really
cattle
clever
cross
answer.
the road?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and you can even think of it more logically. They couldn't drive them any further east because there wasn't enough grazing land.
Yeah.
So you had to get them quickly to eastern markets, and that's going to lead to even further expansion of railroads and also things like refrigerated rail cars so that the meat doesn't spoil.
Look at this.
Huge
And
industry.
You know what else it leads to is conflict. And so you've got sheep guys, the sheepmen versus the cattlemen. You've got ranchers versus farmers. The range wars.
What so many westerns become about.
Yeah.
And eventually barbed wire is going to help with ending this open range. And what?
Oh, I'm sorry. So you guys know that there was a math teacher that used to work here. And her
Her?
name, her, all up on her.
Up on her.
And I'm not making this up. And many people you can talk to that have been around here as long as I have will corroborate this. There was a math teacher. Her first name was Barb. And guess what her last name was?
Barber?
Dwyer.
Barbed wire. Wow.
I'm not kidding.
Shout out to Barb. Hope she's listening.
I sold her family one of our cars.
Oh.
And I'm like, Barb, fantastic math teacher.
Barbed wire.
Retired quite a long time ago, but her name was Barbed Wire. And I'm like, you can't make that up.
That's
You
pretty
know,
great.
that's crazy. I'm sorry. That's why I
No,
was
it's
laughing
okay.
when I heard Barbed
was
Wire.
wondering. I was wondering. No, I'm glad
I'm like,
you told that story.
I wonder how Barb's doing. Barb, if you're listening, hope everything's well.
Yeah. And
Boy, how do you recover from that?
don't know.
railroads are going to replace these long cattle trails as the main route to the markets.
Yeah, and there have been arguments that barbed wire is one of the most important inventions of the 19th century.
Yeah.
And a pretty good math teacher. Okay.
All right, railroads, yes. So this myth that we've, one of the biggest myth versus reality moments is railroads, because railroad is often remembered as this private enterprise where you had these powerful engineers kind of putting together these heroic enterprises out west, and they've got these golden spikes, and it's this big national economy.
But it's also government power. And what you mentioned, Dr. Garrison, before about subsidies. The railroads receive enormous land grants, tens of millions of acres, and state governments pile on with more. In many ways, railroads are public projects run by private corporations.
And it's a big theme of Gilded Age Season 3.
Yes, it is. And so that rugged individual West, right? It's being built with federal policy and federal money, also corporate capital and huge labor forces, many of them which are immigrants.
Okay, so we've sort of outlined these two stories. Now it's the time for these two interpretations to collide head on. The conquest of indigenous nations is where we really find this intersection.
And federal policy is going to shift all the time. One major approach in the early 1850s is what gets called the concentration policy, assigning tribes to defined reservation areas through treaties that are often negotiated under coercion and sometimes with so-called treaty chiefs selected by the white officials.
And then in 1867, the Indian Peace Commission recommends pushing Plains peoples into large reservations, again, often through pressure, bribery, and deception.
It's the Bureau of Indian Affairs that's supposed to administer this new system, but it's full of corruption and incompetence, and it really is a disaster.
And now add the environmental impact, the catastrophe, and that is unadulterated buffalo slaughter.
Right. So there's this staggering statistic that in
Statistics, most statistics are 73% are usually false.
Well, I have this one in front of me, and it's cited. So In 1865, there's over 15 million buffalo, and 2 decades later, there'll be fewer than 1,000. And in fact, at one point, it actually gets down to like 85 American bison remaining.
Yep.
And so, what's going on here? Well, it's slaughter, it's over hunting, it's this new trend of buffalo furs that becomes really popular, buffalo leather. And there's a quote. So I had this professor in grad school that I was TAing for, and he was a really good lecturer. And he would end his big lecture on the American Indian with this quote from Pliny Coops, which is the chief of the Crows. And the ends with this quote: "When the buffalo went away, the hearts of my people fell to the ground, and they could not lift them up again. After this, nothing happened. There was little singing anywhere." And then he would end the lecture like, boom. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really
It's a
good.
mic drop
Very
right
powerful.
Yeah.
But what this chief is saying is when the buffalo went away, so too did his people.
And it's not just something that's naturally happening, right? Policy and market forces are resulting in this complete devastation. And, people would take these tourist trips out west and they would shoot buffalo out of trains, and this is a deliberate destruction of not only a food base for Native Americans, but just a cultural base for them. And so when you destroy the buffalo, you're not just destroying and killing animals, you're collapsing an entire way of life and reducing a population's ability to resist this.
And if you think about if the federal government saw Native American populations as the problem, wow, eliminate the variable of buffalo from the equation, and soon to follow is going to be ending the problem of having Native Americans around at all. And so to your point, Ms. Keltner. And then there are the wars, decades of conflict from the 1850s through the 1880s.
And we have these moments that we know about, but let's hit one that I think many listeners will recognize: the Battle of Little Bighorn.
Right. So I think this would make a great special podcast down the road. But the story of Custer's Last Stand is really, it encapsulates what we've been trying to say about mythologizing the West, because Custer supposedly is a hero making a last stand defending freedom, when in fact he was leading an expedition to try to wipe out the remaining Sioux that were resisting miners and families, American families that were trying to take land that had been promised to the Sioux. And so when Custer rides in and tries to basically destroy the Sioux and is instead overwhelmed, and he along with his 210 men, when they're all wiped out, they die as heroes. They die with their boots on. They die as a sacrifice for civilization, and they're killed by these savages. So if we step back, it's about the land, especially when gold is discovered in the Black Hills, and all those treaties that were supposed to protect the Sioux, they dissolve, and Custer is seen as the hero riding to the rescue.
And this is classic, where the power of telling the story matters. And the same event can be remembered as a tragic American hero story, or as a rare indigenous victory in a wider war they were ultimately losing.
Yeah, so Custer's Last Stand is in 1876, and then in 1877 comes Chief Joseph and his fight with his tribe, the Nez Perce, and they're going to be forced, originally habitating what would be Oregon and Washington, they're going to be forced onto a reservation in, I believe, present-day Oklahoma, but they're going to refuse to follow that directive, and they're going to go on a flight, right? They're going to try to get away from the U.S. Army. They're going to be pursued across more than 1,000 miles while trying to reach Canada. And this is a large group made up of men, women, and children.
When Chief Joseph finally surrenders, the line that echoes through U.S. history is, quote, "From where the sun now stands, I will fight no more forever."
And his official cause of death was listed as a broken heart.
Broken heart.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you have Geronimo and the Apache resistance into the 1880s. Small bands, massive U.S. military pursuit, and brutal violence on both sides, with atrocities heavily committed by whites.
And finally, then you have the end of organized armed resistance, and this is going to be symbolized through the events at Wounded Knee in 1890.
It starts with this fear around the Ghost Dance movement, which was a religious revival led by certain tribes that promised restoration, including visions of buffalo herds returning.
Right. And the 7th Cavalry tries to round up a group of about 350 Sioux. Fighting breaks out. About 40 soldiers die, and up to 200 Native people are killed. Many cut down by machine guns in what becomes a massacre.
So if Turner's story about the frontier, influencing and making democracy. If that's his story, and if Limerick's story is that democracy expanded alongside this violence and this conquest and dispossession, and, the consequences, they don't vanish when the census says that the frontier is closed.
So at this point, some Americans are disturbed. Reformers start pushing back, not always perfectly and often with paternalistic assumptions, but nonetheless pushing back.
Yeah, we've got Helen Hunt Jackson, which is a huge name here. Her book, A Century of Dishonor, is going to try to force the public to confront all these broken promises. And she describes, quote, the sad revelation of broken faith and violated treaties and deeds of violence. And she said this should bring a flush of shame to American people who love their country. But there's this twist, right?
Yeah, and despite this acknowledgement of this century of dishonor, the federal government is going to come to this solution in the 1880s that it's not going to follow sovereignty for Native Americans or restitution. It's going to be what's called assimilation.
Right. And so whereas the federal policy before this was removal because we had the room to do it, now it's going to be assimilation. And so now you enter the Dawes Severalty Act. Severalty is the word that means individual property ownership. This happens in 1887. The federal government breaks up communal reservation lands into individual allotments. Hello, Homestead Act of 1862, now extended to the natives. 160 acres to the head of a family, smaller amounts to others, promising citizenship, but often withholding full title for decades.
And this is, this is devastating to Native Americans who don't believe that you can own land. They view land as communal. And so whatever's left after the 160 acres to the heads of families, this is going to be called surplus land, and that is going to be opened up to white settlement, and that's conquest, right? Mm-hmm. By a filing cabinet.
Right, and it's probably the most effective way of breaking up tribal lands. Yeah. And then you add on to that this boarding school system where Indigenous children, Indian children are taken from their families, from their communities. They're stripped of their language, their religion, their clothing, their identity. They're made to convert into Christianity and adopt American norms. And even though at the time this was seen as almost progressive, looking back, we can see just how devastating it was.
Absolutely. So the West ends this era with the federal government not just controlling land, but trying to reshape identity.
All right, so big episode there. Thanks for tuning in to APUSH for All. If you like the episode, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple iTunes, YouTube. Leave us a review. And if you got a topic you want us to discover or cover, send us a message on Instagram at APUSH for All.
Until next time, keep learning from yesterday to make sense of today.